Kia ora koutou, and welcome to the Meet the Candidates event for Te Ao Rangaho's Engineering New Zealand's 22 board elections. Ko Stacey Campbell aho. I'm a General Manager here at Engineering New Zealand. I'm going to keep my introductions very short because I want to leave as much time as possible for you to hear from the people that you come to hear from. We're really delighted with the calibre of candidates standing in this year's elections, and I want to thank them all first for standing and also for making themselves available for this session today. So we've got 16 candidates for the 2 general board vacancies and 4 candidates for the position of Vice President. 2 people who we don't have here today are our candidates for Deputy President, that's Glenn Cornelius, and for President, Tim Fisher. Glenn and Tim are both running unopposed, so they've graciously bowed out of today's event so that we have more time to hear from those who are running for the contested positions. But you can find out more about Tim and Glenn on our candidate information page on our website. So let's kick straight in. I'm going to ask each candidate a question and they'll have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer. We'll hear from the candidates for Vice Presidency first and then go to the candidates for the general vacancies. So without further ado, here we go. Donna, this is a question for you. What do you think Engineering New Zealand should be focusing on right now and why?
Thank you, and kia ora. I think engineering, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, Engineering New Zealand, to stand for the Vice President role. I've been a member for a number of years now and a fellow for a couple of years and involved with EPAC and the Disciplinary Committee for a little while now. So great opportunity and good luck to my fellow candidates. In terms of Engineering New Zealand and its focus, I think the key thing is absolutely looking at the relevancy of the organisation as a membership-led organisation going forward. The profession has changed so much and is going to change so much with the impact of technology. And as a membership organisation, you know, one of many that operates in New Zealand currently, all of those organisations need to look at relevancy for the members. Advocating around the key big issues as they affect us now and going into the future is really important. Looking at strategic foresighting in order to inform initiatives around transformation of the organisation is going to be key to underpinning an agile organisation which is fit for the future. And there's excellent work going on now, which I am very privileged to be part of as part of a foresighting process. The changing roles, responsibilities and skills likely to be required by engineers of the future is really going to be important because engineering is changing as a profession. It's not just about the traditional pathways now going through academia and coming out as an engineer and then becoming chartered. We now know that with globalisation, with technology, with transformation, engineers are coming from very different sectors now, and we need to work with all different pathways through industry, through academia, dealing with our global counterparts to really make sure that our engineers are fit for the future and that we are nurturing them and supporting them going forward. Working with government to continue to advocate around the important issues is key, and having a strong voice and being really proactive for membership and for the profession is going to be vital going forward for Engineering New Zealand. Thank you.
Wonderful, thanks so much. Dan, you're next. How can Engineering New Zealand ensure that the profession is held in a high regard?
Engineering New Zealand can ensure that the profession is held in high regard by advocating and supporting all disciplines as a professional engineer or an engineering professional. Engineers are a backbone of solutions for society. So in a world where we've got increasing focus on sustainability and benefits to society, we could use frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goals and other frameworks and the Treaty of Waitangi and be an advocate for all the work that engineers do across a range of disciplines.
Wonderful. Thank you. Aaron, you're up next. What do you think is the biggest issue facing the profession?
Well, firstly, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Aaron Hockman aho. I'm really pleased to be here and the opportunity to stand for a VP role for Engineering NZ Board. I think if I give my perspective as leading one of the New Zealand consulting firms, I think one of our issues that we have is probably around talent, actually. So with COVID, the ability to bring talent into the country to support engineering projects infrastructure, the ability to grow a really diverse group of candidates and focus on the grassroots coming through the profession, through the universities, and actually holding on to talent too. As the borders open up, I think there's a potential that we'll lose some good engineers overseas. They'll have the opportunities, but we want to retain that talent at home. So I think focusing on our talent, focusing on membership, listening to the membership's concerns, making sure that everyone's got a place in Engineering NZ and they can relate to the strategy and the organisation. And we've got that support structure. Coming through COVID, it's been challenging for everybody, and I know that firsthand leading my organisation, and providing that support network that the engineers in our membership can thrive, they can reach their potential, and ultimately, you know, we have a profession that's representative of the society that we work in, right? So I feel that we've made some good strides in my own company, and I'm really keen to take that knowledge and experience and bring it to the board and for the betterment of the profession.
Thanks, Aaron.
Good.
And our final candidate for the Vice President role is Siobhan. Siobhan, what role do you think Engineering New Zealand should play in supporting its members to develop their technical skills?
Yeah, kia ora, and that's a great question, because I think, as we're all aware, one of the biggest challenges for engineers at the moment is just how much change there is in the industry. And looking into the future, it's even quite hard to imagine some of the skills that our future engineers are going to need. And we're seeing that right now, that, you know, when I graduated, like many of you on the call, it was pretty straightforward. You learn how to design things, but now our engineers have to think of this whole range of other factors around, you know, what does digital play, climate change, sustainability, cultural values. So in terms of Engineering New Zealand's role, I think the key thing is helping our engineers to retain currency in terms of what is required for them in their roles, but also very much forward scanning to the future to help engineers prepare. And I think even right now, we don't, you know, what engineers are going to be and what they need is going to be significantly different. So it's that agility as well. And then the other piece for me is there is so much change that it's putting huge pressure on our engineers in terms of that wellness piece. And I think that Engineering New Zealand plays a really key role in terms of supporting engineers around how we work and ways of working and what's acceptable. And we need to lead the way at a board level in terms of advocating for engineers so that they can cope with all of this change.
Fantastic. Thanks, Siobhan. So those are our 4 candidates for the Vice President role. We have a standout number of 16 candidates for the 2 general board vacancies, and impressively 15 out of 16 of them are here at this session today. So we'll start now with, and I should add that these have names have been drawn essentially at random. They're in no particular order. So we will begin with Cameron Mackay. Cameron, how will you represent member concerns at the board level if you're successful?
Kia ora whanau. Hey, first up, thanks for the opportunity and the support and supporting my application to the board. How am I going to make sure that I take account of member concerns? Firstly, I'm pretty connected across the range of engineering disciplines that we have currently. You've heard from some of our Vice President candidates that those are going to change into the future, and I'm seeing that as well. My job initially as a transmission line engineer is actually, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I mostly work in civil and electrical engineering, or dabble. What I'm really interested in is where we're going into the future. And so for me, the key thing to understand is how as we've heard from the VP candidates, the world's going to change, and that we can entice really good candidates into our industry and fill that pipeline of people who can change with the changing environment. But also, looking at right now, represent the members in the vast array of different types of engineers that we have at present. So the short answer to your question is my focus is on the future, but right now I'm listening to those who are in my sphere to understand their concerns and represent all different types of engineers.
Thanks, Cameron. My next question is for Joy. Joy, what do you think is the most important skill to have on a board for an organisation of this kind?
Thank you for the opportunity to have me here. And with my experience as an immigrant engineer come to New Zealand and sees in multiple different angle. So the diversity inclusive is a really key element. And people always and ego forget the talent, and but on the market, and lots of immigrant engineers, and they couldn't find a job. It's really important to recognize and experience and to help our engineering community in New Zealand grow. So those people are very, very eager to find a position, but it's a gap for our board and engineering New Zealand to fill. And the language challenging, culture challenging, and with my experience last 7 years with SIGI group, special interest group, I have seen so many hurdles and difficulties, challenges for these people. I really like our people local. We have those professionals here, and they can and stand up and say, "I'm gonna here to help you," and to get more people and engage in our community and to help our engineering community grow, particularly with some skills very, very overseas, not to even have here. So that's I really want to bring those kind of and the diversity inclusive and a view from my experience on this and the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Krish, you're up next. Krish, how will you ensure that Te Ao Maori is valued in the engineering profession?
Thank you for the opportunity. Kia ora whanau. I recently finished a tikanga course with Wananga e Aotearoa, and I was not born here, and so I didn't get the chance to learn te reo or Maori tikanga in school. Compared to my kids, they knew a lot. So this course helped me see the world from the Maori lens, and it was really good because not only did they teach us how the tikanga is followed, but also why, because that's the key element that was missing. Once we understood why things were done a certain way, then we go, oh, that makes total sense. And being engineers, logic prevails. And from that point onwards, we started connecting better. I see this opportunity in the board to be able to grow my connections with the Maori whānau and basically help me get closer to them and earn the right to do business in their way. I really see that this is the step forward to make our country more united. Thank you.
Thank you, Krish. Ian, next question's for you. Ian, how will you as a board member support members to advance their careers?
Okay, I'm already working in that area. I'm a competency assessor for CPN, so I've been doing that for 15 years. Dealing with all disciplines, the spectrum, from Kiwi engineers to immigrant engineers. I've noticed that over half of the engineers going through the CPN process are actually immigrant engineers, so there's a lot of talent coming in from overseas. And part of developing people's careers is also recognising the experience that those candidates have got from overseas, because a lot of the time they come from very large projects and then they end up doing relatively menial work in New Zealand because the opportunities aren't here. So it's really recognising the talent that people have got already and utilising that and developing that in industry. Another area that I work in is I have my own technical recruitment consultancy. So I am recruiting engineers for the engineering industry and looking at where I can place people and help them to develop their individual careers by placing them in appropriate roles and and supporting the businesses that are looking for that talent. So I'm already in that area. I'm also a member of the Auckland Branch Committee and the Mechanical Engineering Group Management Committee, putting on CPD events and arranging events of interest to the engineering community. So through that medium, I'm also helping people to develop their careers and expand their knowledge within the engineering sphere.
Thanks, Ian. Carissa, you're next. People often say engineering projects are late, over budget, and don't achieve the outcomes we want. What should Engineering New Zealand's role be in improving procurement conditions in the industry?
Wow, I felt like you tailor-made this question for me, Stacey.
I promise you we haven't.
Well, my engineering career has been a bit different in that I have moved into the project management side. So I have quite a large amount of experience in the procurement of both consultants, contractors, and materials. And a big part of it is helping to both parties to understand risk and where it lies and who's best suited to manage that risk, because the risk will drive the cost in the worst way possible. We need to help people to have enough time. You can't have something cheap and fast. It's just not possible. You have to balance these needs. And so I think if we can support people with more training on how to do these sides of the engineering industry that you don't traditionally learn at university, the project management side, the procurement side, but also supporting businesses in the industry as a whole to set more realistic expectations and more fairer contracts that suit both parties, and you'll end up with a better outcome for everyone in the long run.
Thanks, Carissa. Next question is for Paul. Paul, how would you as a board member encourage more women into the engineering profession?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that really interesting question, because it's something that we do need to look at. And I think it starts earlier than board level. I think we have to be more proactive in schools, offering students the opportunity to view the varied and interesting work that engineers do. As a lead assessor for CPN, same as Ian, I see a small but increasing number of women applications coming through, both for first time and reassessment. It is difficult for women in particular with maternity leave to stay current in the profession and to continue. But I do think that we do have to make much more of an effort to get female engineers back to schools to talk to females about careers in STEM, which will include engineering. I think that's something that's been started in the past, but something could be done much better going forward, particularly with the opportunities we're given with the changes to society at the moment.
Thank you, Paul. Kevin, how do you think the engineering profession will change over the next 10 years?
I think from my project experience, the change I sort of foresee is that, you know, the engineers coming from different backgrounds will be working with each other in a lot more collaborated approach. So, you know, this is based on people understand what each other needs and wants in terms of delivering their projects and coming up with a solution. I guess that's you know, not necessarily the same solution for the same issue, but rather a more unique solution for the particular problems or issues that, you know, that's based on an engineering first principle. But that is also, you know, sort of best for the project, best for the client solution.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah. Next question is for our other Cameron Chapman. Cameron, how will you support members to embrace diversity?
Tēnā koutou katoa. Well, firstly, thanks Stacey and the team at Te Ao Rangahau for putting this event together. I think it's a good reflection of the innovation that we can have as an organisation to bring an event like this to a board election process. So firstly, thanks for that. I think to support members around diversity, if we look at the context of the megatrends that we see at the moment, and a few people have touched on that already, is around attracting talent into the organisation, the industry of engineering. I think we need to look further than STEM, traditional STEM subjects as a solution to engineering, and think of it as a creative. We're all creators, and bringing in diversity from those creative subjects, so putting the A into STEM, so creating the STEAM acronym that we've seen, I think that will help create that diversity of thought across the organisation and the industry that we need. Ideas may be born out of one person, but great ideas can be born out of a team of creative individuals that combine together to increase that power.
It's interesting. Thanks, Cameron. Hamish, next question's for you. Hamish, what skill do you bring to the table that others may not have?
Thank you, Stacey. And yeah, thank you to Engineering New Zealand for the opportunity to speak today. Look, I think one of my strengths is that I bring a real depth of experience. I've got over 25 years experience in the engineering profession. I'm a practitioner. I've got really hands-on experience in the consulting environment as a structural engineer. And so that depth of experience and understanding of the sector, the engineering profession, and the parts of the profession that I've been privileged enough to work in is a real skill. I'm really reasonably well connected across architects, engineers, project managers, regulators, contractors, and I think that's something that's really important to get a view across sectors, not just engineering, but what other people are doing in adjacent sectors and in adjacent professions. And I also really care. I really care about engineering. I really care about Engineering New Zealand. I'm not doing this for any other reason, really. I want to stand because I really care about Engineering New Zealand and the way in which it supports great outcomes for New Zealanders.
Wonderful. Thanks, Hamish. Fritha, the next question's for you. Fritha, how do you think the board might help to retain more women in the industry?
Oh, good question. Yeah, diversity in the industry is quite a big issue. Yeah, not just about bringing women into the industry, but retaining them. As a mother, yeah, I have contemplated branching out, doing something else that maybe might be a bit more easy, shorter hours, less stress, something like that, to be able to do as a mother. But I found that actually being back in New Zealand and in the engineering community back here, it is doing an amazing job at the moment. And I think it's just continuing perhaps the momentum that's already happening. And I think New Zealand is well ahead in that regard. And I think, yeah, it's just about keeping that up. And the diversity agenda is a great step in that right direction. And yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic, thank you. Our next question is for Anne. And what do you think is the most important thing for engineers to know when they're starting out in their careers?
Kia ora tātou. Interesting question. Because you wonder if you knew too much, whether you'd have gone in the same track. I think probably a great advice would be to join their to join Engineering New Zealand or their local branch in their particular discipline, because you are supported by a group of similar cohort of similar trained people, but also those who've gone in a whole lot of different directions. So it gives you a bit of breadth of view of where you might go, and opportunity for training and so forth as well. I think I would advise someone starting out in the profession to say yes, to take the opportunities that are presented to them, and to accept that you're going to be uncomfortable some of the time, but that's where most of your learning takes place, and it's a pretty exciting place to be.
Thank you. Ben, you're up next. Ben, how is diversity and inclusion important to you?
Thanks for that question. It's a good one, actually. It's come up a couple of times. I think that it's important to me that we have a diverse workforce, and it's been mentioned a couple of times that we need to build on the great work that's already started to encourage young people into engineering. And I think that if you haven't heard about the Wonder Project, look it up, get involved. It's pretty amazing. And Engineering New Zealand really needs to lead the way to improve diversity and inclusion. And one way that we can do this is by improving the inclusivity and the reach to attract children and young adults into our profession. And I guess we need to work harder to ensure that our profession as a whole is a career choice that's accessible to everyone, and that Engineering New Zealand can help communicate change and encourage diversity and inclusion by celebrating our profession's successes in this area. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Ashley, you're up next. Ashley, engineering represents a huge range of disciplines, as some of our other candidates have mentioned. What do you think it is that unites engineers?
I think basically it's a general scope of the work, because we are designers. So regardless you are civil or electrical, like at the end of the day, you're working on your computer trying to simulate all the models, or you draw the diagrams. So because even though it's such a vast occupation, however, we essentially doing the same work. We trying to understand the work, and we try to make it a plan so that someone can carry out the job for us. So I think it's quite important for our engineers to actually see it, feel it. If you are a power engineer, go to the power station, see the size of the cable, see the material, and then you can design what is your bending angle of your cable. So I think because they are based on our education, based on our background knowledge, and then they have to give out basically after our own process in our brain, in our knowledge world, and then you have to give the project out. So that's unite all the engineers into the same discipline. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. All right, our second to last question is for Philippa. Philippa, where do you think the profession should focus its attention to inspire people to become engineers?
I think we're currently at a really exciting part of history and for engineering. We've got the start of the fourth industrial revolution. So there's lots of really interesting things to do with that and changing the way society is. We've got this huge challenge of trying to design things for all of society, and that's something we've been failing on at the moment. And part of that is what other people have touched on this lack of diversity that we've got in engineering. We've got the pandemic going on at the moment, trying to stay connected when it's not really safe to be connected is a big challenge going on. And we've got the skill shortage problems going on. So we've got a lot of challenges to go on. And I think people are really motivated to make a difference. And I think the people that are drawn to engineering are the people that love solving problems. And so I think that's something we can really connect on. There's also the environmental issues. When I talk to young people, they're really passionate about making a difference there and creating or making sure we keep the world so that their descendants can also enjoy it, so their children and their children's children can enjoy that space. So there's lots of really interesting things that young people are passionate about that would draw you into engineering. Engineering as a profession is getting a lot more diverse as well. We're going to be working a lot more with people in social sciences and completely different disciplines. So this also provides really interesting opportunities that you no longer have to be in a narrow definition or living in a cubicle. So there's lots of different ways of working, and I think that's really attractive as well. So I think the profession is going to be a really exciting place to be over the next decades, and this is a great time to join us.
Great, thank you. The last question is for Joe. Joe, how do you think the engineering profession can support broader New Zealand society?
That is a good question. I think the engineering profession as a whole is already an underpinning element of broader New Zealand society. You don't have to look very far outside your office door to see something that's been engineered that wider society takes for granted. I think as a profession, we can do a better job of being visible as a profession in wider society. Sometimes I feel like we're amongst the professions in New Zealand, we're a bit of a wallflower. We're at the party, but we're standing awkwardly against the wall, nursing a drink instead of getting in amongst it and talking to people. I think as a rule, we should get outside our own sandbox a bit more often. Sometimes we seem to focus a bit too much on issues that directly affect our profession immediately, like occupational licensing and things like that. We engage pretty closely with branches of government like MB and so forth who are regulating us, but we don't often have a lot to say about things that affect us in a broader sense, but aren't as immediate. And I think we've talked about the pipeline issues and the diversity issues facing the profession during the course of this talk, and that's a pretty good example. There is a pipeline issue facing the profession. We do need to get more people and a more diverse cohort of people flowing out of schools and into universities and then into professional practice. And part of achieving that requires really close engagement with groups like the Ministry of not groups, but entities like the Ministry of Education. And I think if we look closely, we'll be able to find all sorts of ways where Engineering New Zealand can engage more deeply outside of our own sandbox. And I think it's important for us to look for those opportunities.
That's great. Thank you, Joe. Well, look, those are some really great answers. Thanks, everybody, for engaging. That does bring our session to a close, and I want to thank everyone one more time for giving up their time to be here today. I think it's a really valuable opportunity for candidates, for the voters, sorry, to find out who you are and a little bit about what's important to you. So I want to wish you all the best of luck, and don't forget to encourage everyone, all of your contacts, to vote. Yeah, we absolutely wish you all the best for the election process, and thank you once again.